Hello everyone, my name is Alexei and today you're watching Ask a Friend and my friend is Mrs. Jenkins.
Hello.
So Mrs. Jenkins, whenever I hear something about you or just think of you, it's always like I think of some good stories. So, and I think you are one of those persons who, like, I hear like, and it's like, wow, where is that coming from? So,
Okay, hold
uh,
on. Speaking of that, you have an inchworm on your collar, and I'm going to remove it.
oh,
There.
thank you. Oh, well, you're,
I
and
just
also you're a mom.
yeah, I'm a mom.
So, notice all these things. Um, One of the biggest questions, I guess, would be you're a Christian for a long, long time.
Yes.
So, what, how have you experienced God in your life? Like,
Okay. Well, all right. I was raised in a Christian home, and when I was little, we went to a Baptist church that had altar calls. Are you familiar with those?
no, not really. Altar calls.
Altar calls. Well, what they were was at the end of the sermon, the pastor would give an invitation that if the Lord had been speaking to you and that you wanted to become a Christian or rededicate your life to the Lord, that you should walk forward up to the
Mm-hmm.
front of the church, which was considered the altar. And then
Okay.
they would pray with you, they would meet with you, and you could
Right.
accept the Lord after
Yeah,
the
now I
service.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I have same background. I went
Okay,
to,
okay. So you
so
know
like,
that. And
altar call.
altar call.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called altar
So,
call. And of course they would sing like something like just as I am,
mm-hmm.
usually multiple verses of that
Just
to
as I
yeah, and it was very emotional. Okay. So when I was little, I gosh, I must have been, I mean, I don't know, younger than 5.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
I was really worried. I mean, I was really worried about going to hell, and I was feeling very convicted about sin. So
Mm-hmm.
I asked my dad if it would be okay if I went up, and he said, "Well, it is okay, but if you don't want to go up, you don't have to go up there. You can just pray to the Lord right here in your heart and
Mm-hmm.
ask Him into your heart, and that you don't need to go up." So I did
Right.
that.
So you
So
prayed to yourself, or you
yeah,
went
yeah,
up.
within my yeah, pray to the Lord within my own heart. So, but then I would say that there were periodically throughout my growing up, every now and then I would feel gripped, like I would feel like I do consider myself a Christian, but I'm not really showing a lot of dedication or discipline as a Christian. Like, okay, for example, I think maybe when I was around 8, so I remember I was like in 3rd grade. I
Mm-hmm.
went downstairs and my parents were having devotions in at the table
Mm-hmm.
together, reading the
Oh.
Bible and praying, and they didn't see me coming down, but they did that every morning. And I remember being gripped and thinking, I never do that. I'm not, like, wow, I am so lazy and I'm not very, I must not love the Lord very much if I'm not willing to do that.
And you
And
were 5.
no, this was
No.
more like when I was 8.
Oh
So
well.
then I went up and I prayed about that. Like I confessed it, like asked the Lord to forgive me for that. And I would have some incidents like that throughout my upbringing, like at various times. And I think it was almost like it wasn't that I thought I was becoming a Christian for the first time, but I would as I was growing at different cognitive stages, I would grasp more about what it meant to be a Christian, or
Mm-hmm.
what it like I know I had another really major feeling, of an incident when I was about 14, where I really I'm trying to remember what the issue was. I guess that the issue was that I felt that we had a guy come to our church who was he was kind of like an evangelist. But this was in the Reformed. We were Reformed already though, so it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like that, like a hellfire and brimstone thing. I mean, it was actually Henry Krabbendam who taught at
Mm-hmm.
Covenant College, which is where I went later.
Ah.
But he was preaching. It was kind of like a revival just for our little church. We had a very small church. Okay, like I think there might have been 30 people at the
Oh.
church. Okay. So this was being held in our living room, but I remember as I was hearing him talking, I just got really emotional, and I went back into my bedroom, and I cried, and I thought, I need to really commit myself to the Lord. If I'm really serious about being a Christian, this needs to matter to me, and I need to care about this more than other things like my friends and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was actually a pretty big event. And after that, like for like for several years after that, I was really disciplined. Like I would read my Bible every morning before I went to school and pray. And I was very dedicated
And
at
that,
that time.
at that point, you were not 8,
I was 14, 14.
14.
Yeah, so it was kind of like a teenager thing, like really coming to grips with it. And at that point I realized and then from that point on I I was very committed to being a Christian permanently at that
Mm-hmm.
point. So okay, now what was the original question?
How did you
How
experience
did I
getting your?
experience God in my life? Okay, well,
Well, that was one of those experiences. Like, hey.
right, feeling convicted, yes. And I also I would say that um I I felt I was the youngest child in my family.
Spoiled?
Well, I'm sure my siblings would say so. In some ways, probably, but my parents they were not into like buying us lots of stuff or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that maybe they were not as strict on me in some ways. Like I was able to speak openly more than my siblings probably,
Mm.
or maybe not do as many chores. I think that's probably quite true. Okay, but anyway, I really I really made up my mind that I was going to uh, I made up my mind like about the time I was in high school, at some time during high school, around this age 14, that I was going to commit myself to being a Christian
Mm-hmm.
and commit myself to the Lord, and that was going to be it. That was going to be permanent. I wasn't going to be lame and just not forget about that, because I felt that it was a matter of loyalty to God,
Mm-hmm.
uh, out of gratitude for my salvation, and I wasn't gonna like be constantly thinking about like just forgetting about it. I was gonna be loyal, and so when I went to a Christian college, as you know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I told you that I went to Covenant College. That's where I met my husband. But
And it's in Georgia, right?
yeah, it's actually it's right near Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's right on the border between Georgia and Tennessee,
Ooh.
right in North Georgia, but very close to Chattanooga,
Mm-hmm.
up on the mountain. Yeah, and I think that made a huge impact on me. Partly it was because I got a lot of good teaching, in terms of theology and just my education in general, being from a Christian perspective. So I very much value that. But I think that also that something that was important there was the example of many other young people who were all Christians in some sense. And I was observing them and thinking, okay, uh, they say they're Christians, but they're constantly breaking the rules, or they say they're Christians, but they have no intention of maintaining any level of chastity. It was
Mm-hmm.
like I was pretty I was pretty discouraged about that, and I thought, once again, I thought, I am not going to do that. I was kind of stubborn because I guess I was getting the message that, like, to be an obedient Christian was too hard, and that nobody should really expect that they should ever really expect to attain that or whatever. But I was like, no, I'm going to. So one of the things that I felt very strongly about was that if I wanted to get married, but I absolutely was going to get married to somebody who my parents approved of, who was a Christian, because I felt that my parents, as Christian parents, that I could really respect their opinion, and that I was kind of scared to pick out, like, 100% to pick out my own spouse. Like, I wanted to at least get their approval or their advice, because I felt like, I would get crushes on practically everybody. I was like
Right.
boy crazy. Okay. So I just thought, I better just run it past them, because I don't trust myself to make a good decision under the circumstances. so, so I did do that, and it was helpful, because a lot of times I would think, maybe some guy would be interested in me, but I'd think, no, because mom and dad, they're not gonna, that I was always thinking about that, even though they didn't even know or say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did make a point of that, and of course my husband Steve, who is the who's he was the one that I married, was he agreed with me on that too. I mean, his family was pretty much of a similar background to mine, so we were on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that up until that point, most of my Christian life was primarily focused on me, on my sort of decision uh, to to live this life, to be dedicated, and to be loyal. But I wouldn't, and I was probably a little bit self-righteous. Like, I was like, maybe scornful of people that were
Mm.
weak, and were like given into temptation and whatnot. I know that I was sometimes pretty harsh on my friends. Like, let's just put it this way, I wasn't the friend that they would go to first to tell about their failures. Okay, so and I actually noticed that, and I thought, well, that's not so great. And I knew that that wasn't right, because I know that, I was saved by grace. It wasn't because I was like so, righteous or holy. I knew that
Mm.
logically, but I still would get down on people, or feel exasperated with people that didn't, that were, I felt that were just being weak, or not being adequately dedicated. But I think that when I after I got married, and my husband was in grad school. I mean, when we started out on our own as a married couple, I I was finally in a position to have my faith get tested and exercised,
Mm.
because I um it was just incredibly stressful. Like, my husband was in grad school. I didn't get to see him very much. We had no money. I had a baby. After a while, another baby. I was, didn't get enough sleep at night. I felt, I felt like that life was a struggle, and sometimes I was scared. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would be scared about, like, what was going to happen. Like, when he was in grad school, I used to really worry about, like, well, what if he doesn't get a job? Like, I used to really worry about that. And um, I I remember sort of making a commitment in myself, like, okay, this is it. I got to trust God. Like, like, I can't control this. God. I have to. There's no way that I can make sure that my husband gets a job, or where, or anything about that. I am completely going to have to trust God about it, because I can't do anything about it. And I sort of committed myself to just not being a nervous wreck about it, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, or crying all the time or whatever. So I I did that. I did manage to sort of try to trust the Lord about that, and then lo and behold, God provided for our needs, and like many of the things that we had said that, well, wouldn't it be nice if we would like imagine where we would like to be, like what it would be really great is if he could have like get a job somewhere in the Northeast at a small Christian college, liberal arts college in a rural area. That would be really well. God just gave us like exactly what we kind of dreamed of,
Hmm.
as I felt very, very struck. I was like, what? God just gave us exactly what we wanted? I could hardly believe it,
Yeah.
you know? And I mean, I guess that, that was just at the very beginning of my life, but I'm getting kind of very clunked here thinking about it. But I mean, I've been able to trust God um, throughout many disappointments. I mean, sometimes disappointments and troubles.
Hmm.
And I guess the two things, the two things that I have been tested over and over again is God's word reliable? If when God, gives us His law, when He tells us what we should do and what is right, are we going to believe it or not? And I can tell you that to the extent that I have honored God and been obedient to Him, it has been completely rewarded with peace, joy. I mean, it doesn't mean that like we're fat. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if we just obey God, we're going to be healthy and wealthy, and everything's going to go smoothly. That's not. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah,
What
it's
I'm
a
saying
different
that
denomination than
in the
ours.
yeah, right. I'm not talking about a prosperity gospel. I'm just saying that the deep joy and satisfaction and peace that has come with trusting God's word and and finding, yes, it's true. Just as my parents before me, their parents before them, it's true. And and also that I would say the understanding of life, the meaning of life that it offers, that that it makes sense of whatever suffering or trouble that comes our way, that enables you to grow and really love others so unselfishly. I couldn't do it without God's word and the wisdom and his example and Christ's example of self-sacrifice and uh, an unwillingness to lash out at others or take revenge, but instead to be willing to suffer and forgive is just, it's so deep, and it's something that I don't think that it's really hard to explain to people that are just focused on the things of this world and think that they want to be free from God. They think they're free, but they're not really free. They're
No.
enslaved by the passions and lusts and foolishness and rage. It's just it's a great gift to be free from those things. To the extent that I am. I mean, I'm still sinful and go away, Mister.
Oh,
Mr. Yellow Jacket. But yeah, I mean, I'm still, I'm not even to the extent where I'm able to submit to the Lord in these ways. It's just an amazing amount of blessing.
wow,
Yeah.
that's really touching. I'm really no, seriously. Some I do have some friends who are like, okay, did God reveal Himself to you? And I'm just telling this, and this. Like, really, just
It
this
just seems
simple?
so simple. It's nothing like no earth shattering, no earth shattering like suddenly the sky splits open and a beam of light comes out of
Right.
it.
So,
Like a Damascus Road experience or something.
but
Yeah.
then like where I was before, like my my parents do have problems with drinking.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, in my mom's family, yes, we had that too. Yeah.
So, and if it wasn't God's intervention, like it's crazy to think about it. Like to be saved, you have to go to orphanage and then you go to America. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. It was
like
not something that you could have planned.
no.
No.
So
Yeah. But it's
it's
like, and you can see how God's grace was like He just reached down and just plucked you out of that
so, and
situation.
now I'm like, God, what else? What can I want? Like, so yeah, and it just started with that fact that He took me out of that family. So
Yes. But now, and ironically, now you are in a position to actually love them in an unselfish way, perhaps. I don't,
oh
you know,
yes,
you know what I mean? Like, because you're not dependent on them, and you have it, you've been given, because you've been forgiven much, and the grace that you've received, you could show that to your family, and it could be a very beautiful thing.
yes, and
You
then
know,
for
isn't
my
it
part,
ironic?
yeah, like okay, it's like that part where, um, in one sense, I have all the rights just to say, okay, I don't want to deal with you. I
Right,
like,
right. Yeah, you would have that right.
yeah, and like,
But what did Christ do? He who he had the complete right to all the glory and honor in heaven. He gave it all up to come and love us.
right, and then
That's
from
our
the
example, right?
yes, and it's a living example. Like, uh, it's I don't know, it's crazy to think about it, but you think about this, like your parents told you like they did something to get you out of there, out of orphanage, but then they're
Hmm.
like, really? I'm
Right,
still there,
right. The
and
disappointments and the feeling of
so,
betrayal. Is
yeah,
that right?
oh yes, absolutely, and especially when it's been told to your face, like,
Face, right.
really? I'm still there, and you're telling me you try to do something, but as you
Wow, I wish
said,
I
I,
I wish you could have. I wish my mom was still alive. Of course, she died in 2016, but she was an orphan.
yeah,
Did I tell you that? I told
mm,
Pasha.
not
Well, my
sure.
mom was an orphan. What happened was her mom, when she was 10, her mother actually committed suicide, and then
Oh wow.
her dad remarried somebody, but then it was during the Depression. Okay, so he was a drinker. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just such a terrible affliction. I'm telling you, because I think he was a very bright man, and he wanted to do the right thing, but he was the alcohol just made him so tragically irresponsible,
Mm-hmm.
and just he left the country. He left the country and didn't send any money back to take care of the kids. This is during the depression, and then
Oh.
finally my mom and her sister went to live with her aunt, and they were just extremely humble means. They lived in upstate New York, and they were basically subsistence farming. They hardly had any
Mm-hmm.
cash. It was during the during that time, very difficult. So I was reading through. My sister and I have been looking through a lot of old family documents and stuff, and my mom had saved some letters from her dad, and it was just tragic. Like he was like, I know that I said that. This was like right before she went to college. I
Mm-hmm.
know that I said that I would send money to pay for it. I don't remember what it was, for pay for whatever it was. But and I know I never sent it, and I just want to tell you that I'm really sorry, and I really really meant to send it, but things just didn't work out. And it was just I just thought, wow, my mom. She overcame a lot of adversity after have her mother commit suicide, and then her father be so irresponsible, and yet God provided for her needs. Like, you
Yeah.
know, she was a very resilient person. She was very loving and very patient with others. Yeah, so I wish, you know, like, in other words, you can overcome that. You can overcome those betrayals and
Yeah.
those and you know, I think that she turned to the Lord, and she knew that he would never betray her. He would never let her down. That she could
Yeah.
trust him, and she really did, and it made her really a beautiful person.
Yeah. And um,
Not grasping for others to give her, you know, respect or give
exactly.
her, you know, security. She wasn't a grasping person. She was a very gentle and very kind person. It was very calm.
Yeah, there is
Yeah.
one Russian poem about um, orphans,
Uh huh.
and it's a poem about three children, one older daughter or sister at
Yeah.
that point, and like three brothers, three
Okay.
little brothers, and it's like starts the hus- husband went to work in another country and then just forgot about everything.
Okay.
And same thing kind of happened with the mother.
Oh
So the
dear.
children were
Right.
like all by themselves, and then the daughter was like, okay, what do I do? Like I can cook a little bit and go sell it, but it's not enough.
Right.
So and then uh, she um, faced with the reality like okay I can't do it by myself so and there was another opportunity to do some selling like she was at the poem she was like 12
Right.
and it goes on like okay how about prostitution or
Right.
something
Sure.
and she's like
She said no to that. Okay.
no, but it was
Uh-huh.
like okay, Satan was working there.
Right,
Like
right. He was
okay,
offering
so
these temptations because of her
yeah,
desperation.
yeah,
Yeah.
and if you do this business, it will be enough food for you and your brothers, and you'll be well. And she's like, no, 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 I'm not doing this.
Oh wow.
It's like I rather die.
This is a
Till
poem.
yes,
Okay.
and she's like, okay, I rather die than I do this, and the Satan comes and continues like, okay, like here's the tablets, take pills, take
Oh
them,
right, right.
and then like, okay, well, if I go, if I pass away, like what will happen to my brothers? Like, who will take care of them? And then
Mm.
she's like, okay, let's divide it into equal portions for all of us, so all of us die,
Okay.
and
You mean the food?
the pills.
The pills. Oh gosh. Okay.
So yeah, because it's out of all this desperation.
Right.
And the poem goes on that the kids are came back from school and they're like, hey, we had so funny guests and they spoke of God and here's some brochures for us. Can you read this? And yeah, and it pretty much ends up with the words like you said, and it's like even if your mother betrays you, I will never betray you.
Yes, that's
So
right.
yeah, like well, I'm kind of old, but when I read this, I'm like,
It's
oh
been pretty
no,
touching. Yeah, pretty
yeah.
touching. Yes.
So yeah, thank you very much for sharing your story, and I hope it's also helped some our
Yeah.
listeners. I love to hear your stories.
Oh.
It's um,
Well, sorry. I was like, I get all kind of teary, but you know.
oh, it's you. Well, here's the thing: you're being real.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's yeah, it's life.
Yes, it is.
So and you went through a lot of stuff. So
Well, yes. I mean, I would say, you know, you know, so looking at my life, I've been very blessed, actually, very sheltered. You know, I've had, I've been, God's just, you know, given me so many blessings. It's ridiculous for me to act like it's not. I'm not. I can't act like I have some kind of adversity like you've been
Well,
through. But even if it doesn't matter what your situation, people get scared and people
oh
get
yeah,
mad, and we need to deal. Even in the best of circumstances, we end up being confronted with our great need, even if
right.
we have a lot of other blessings. So
Yeah, during our conversation, you mentioned some sort of plan how you would like to find a husband.
oh
So,
yes.
so in
Oh,
your
you mean
main,
at other times we've talked about it?
oh, today,
To
just
today,
today.
oh yeah. Oh,
Um,
how I was boy crazy and I wanted to find a husband. That one.
yes, but first,
Ah.
first we need to go on break, and
Okay.
then we'll come back.
Okay.
So we'll see you later.